Listen up, future weapons testers of the Galactic Federation. Before you even think about stepping into my facility, there's a story you need to hear. A story that still gives me nightmares, makes my third heart skip a beat, and causes my secondary antennae to twist into knots. Oh, where are my manners? I'm Captain Blyx Vorn, Director of the Galactic Weapons Testing Facility on Station Nexus-7 and proud member of the Vexillian species. Well, mostly proud after what happened 6 cycles ago. There I was, sitting in my perfectly organized office, reviewing perfectly normal weapon test reports when my assistant Lieutenant Pip burst through the door. Now, Pip never bursts. Pip glides, Pip floats, Pip sometimes even gracefully stumbles, but burst? Never. Captain Vorn Pip squeaked, all 4 of his eyes wide with panic. The human is here. I nearly spilled my morning nutrient shake all over my pristine desk. What human? We don't have any humans scheduled for then, I remembered. Oh no, you don't mean. Alexandra Rodriguez, Pip whispered, like saying the name too loudly might summon her. She's our new weapons tester. I checked the official documentation 3 times, hoping there was some mistake. But there it was, clear as crystal, Alexandra Boom Rodriguez, Earth Human Weapons Testing Specialist. And in the notes section, written in bold red text, approach with caution. Previous testing facility mysteriously exploded. Well, I said, straightening my ceremonial sash and trying to sound more confident than I felt. We should go greet our new colleague. How bad could it be? Those words. Those cursed words. I should have known better. We found her in the main testing chamber, already examining our pride and joy, the Mark 7 plasma cannon. She was not what I expected. I'd seen humans before, of course, in security briefings and cultural exchange programs. But Alexandra was different. She stood there, barely reaching my chest height, with short black hair tied back in what humans call a ponytail, though it looked nothing like the tail of a Centaurian pony. Her testing suit was covered in scorch marks and what appeared to be. Were those bite marks from a Kronos beast? She turned to face us, and her face split into what I now know as a human smile, but at the time looked terrifyingly like a predatory threat display. Captain Vorn, she exclaimed, striding forward with far too much enthusiasm. I've heard so much about your facility. Is it true you have the new X990 quantum destabilizer? I've been dying to test one of those. I felt my color spots turning a pale shade of blue, a sure sign of distress among my people. MS Rodriguez, welcome to Nexus-7. I see you've already found our testing chamber. Please, she interrupted, waving a hand dismissively. Call me Alex, or Boom. Most of my colleagues went with Boom after the incident with the antimatter grenade. Did you know those things barely tickle? Had to use 3 just to feel a proper kick. Lieutenant Pip made a small whimpering sound beside me. I couldn't blame him. My own tertiary stomach was doing backflips. About your previous testing facility, I began carefully. Oh, that she laughed, actually laughed. Total accident. Who knew that combining a standard fusion core with a temporal displacement field would create a miniature sun? I mean, besides me, I tried to warn them it needed more containment shielding. That's when I knew. This wasn't just any weapons tester. This was a human weapons tester. And my perfectly organized, perfectly normal life was about to become anything but perfect. Or normal. After the introductions, we moved straight into the first test. Standard protocol, you understand. Start with something simple, something safe. A basic plasma rifle, the kind we give to fresh recruits who still have their training wheels on their hover boots. Chief Engineer Zort joined us in the observation room. He's a Quillian, brilliant mind, 12 tentacles for precision work, and a nervous disposition that would make a startled Regilian jumping mouse look calm. Captain, he buzzed anxiously, his face frills vibrating. Are we certain about this? The human's biological readings are concerning. Concerning how? I asked, watching Alexandra prepare in the testing chamber below. She's excited, Zort whispered, horror creeping into his voice. Her adrenaline levels are rising, endorphins are spiking, and she's humming. Sure enough, Alexandra was humming something as she checked over the plasma rifle. Later, I learned it was an Earth song called Another One Bites the Dust. The implications still haunt me. Beginning test 1, I announced through the comm system. MS Rodriguez, please remember this is a standard issue Mark III plasma rifle. The recoil can be quite. Boom, boom, boom. 3 shots, rapid fire, each hitting the center of the target with pinpoint accuracy. The observation room fell silent. Even the ambient hum of our quantum generators seemed to pause in shock. Is that it? Alexandra's voice crackled through the speakers. Come on, this feels like a toy. Where's the kick? Where's the plasma spread? Where's the? She gestured dramatically with her hands. The oomph. Zort's face frills turned pale. Captain, The Mark III is rated for species up to Class 7 durability. The human isn't showing any signs of strain. MS. Rodriguez, I said carefully, perhaps we should run some baseline tests first. The safety protocols. Safety protocols? For this little pea shooter, she laughed that terrifying human laugh again. Look, I'll show you what I mean. Before anyone could stop her, she adjusted the power settings. The rifle's safety indicators turned from green to yellow to red. No, Zort screamed. Those are factory-sealed settings. The power core could. Kaboom! The resulting shot didn't just hit the target, it obliterated it, along with part of the reinforced wall behind it. The observation room's windows automatically polarized to protect our sensitive eyes from the blast. When the smoke cleared, Alexandra stood there, not a hair out of place, grinning like a Cheshire cat, another Earth reference I had to look up later, and honestly, it only made things more terrifying. Now that S more like it, she exclaimed. Still a bit weak, though. Can we boost the power core? Maybe add a secondary plasma chamber? Ooh, what if we reverse the polarity of the neutron flow? Zort made a high-pitched keening sound that our universal translators couldn't even process. His face frills went completely white, all 12 tentacles went limp, and he collapsed in a graceful arc that would have been impressive if it wasn't so alarming. Chief Engineer Zort Alexandra's voice came through, actually sounding concerned. Is he okay? Should I come up there? No, Lieutenant Pip and I shouted simultaneously. Stay. Stay right there, I added more calmly. Zort just needs a moment to process the test results. Oh, good, she beamed. While he's resting, maybe we could try some modifications? I've got this great idea involving quantum tunneling and a miniaturized particle accelerator. Nothing major, just a small upgrade that might, theoretically, punch a hole in space-time. I looked down at Zort's unconscious form, then back at the human who had just treated our most powerful standard-issue weapon like a child's toy. Perhaps I said weakly, we should take a short break. For safety reasons. Safety reasons. But we haven't even gotten to the fun stuff yet, she pouted, actually pouted. Fine. But can I at least keep the rifle? I've got some ideas for improvements and I brought my own toolkit. That's when I noticed the massive case she had brought with her, covered in warning labels in at least 7 different languages. One of them was glowing. Zort, still unconscious, whimpered. I envied his peaceful oblivion. This was only test 1, and already I was considering a career change. Maybe something nice and safe like xenomorphic beast taming or black hole maintenance. But Alexandra Boon Boon Rodriguez was just getting started. And somewhere, in the darkest corners of space, I swear I could hear the universe laughing at us. After the plasma rifle incident, word spread through Station Nexus-7 faster than a quantum transmission. The human wasn't just testing weapons, she was enjoying it. The medical bay started reserving beds specifically for fainting incidents. They even installed padding around the testing chamber observation room. We moved on to the heavy weapons. The quantum disruptor? Cute, but can we make it disrupt more the graviton cannon? Is that all the gravity it can manipulate the sonic devastator? I can barely feel my bones rattling. By the 3rd day, my security team had developed a new protocol, 1 medic for every 2 observers. Dr. Nixus Prime, our head of research and development, lasted exactly 47 seconds into Alexandra's test of the molecular shredder before his exoskeleton turned transparent, a sure sign of extreme stress in arthropodians. But what if we combined the plasma core with the quantum matrix Alexandra suggested during the test of our planet defense-grade ion cannon? She was bouncing on her toes, her hair slightly singed from the backblast that should have vaporized any normal being. Think about it. The ionic dispersion would amplify the quantum fluctuations, creating a cascading wave of... Please, Safety Inspector Crix interrupted, his voice trembling. Please stop saying words, then he too joined the growing list of fainting victims. The truly terrifying part. She was getting better at catching them before they hit the ground. She developed a 6th sense for imminent fainting spells. Once she sprinted from the testing chamber to the observation room in record time just to catch Dr. Nixus Prime as he toppled backward, all while holding an active antimatter pulse rifle. You guys really need to work on your stamina, she said, carefully propping up the unconscious scientist. Hey, speaking of stamina, what's the maximum continuous firing time on this baby? Lieutenant Pip, bless his 4 hearts, tried to maintain some semblance of protocol. MS Rodriguez, the safety manual clearly states. Oh, that reminds me, she reached into her ever-present toolkit and pulled out what appeared to be the safety manual, or what was left of it. She'd filled every margin with notes, calculations, and what appeared to be doodles of explosions. I made some suggestions for improvements. See if we just adjust the containment field specifications here, and maybe add a secondary power source here. 3 more technicians fainted on the spot. The weapons themselves seemed to respond to her presence. The Stellar Lance, our proudest achievement in directed energy weapons, practically purred when she handled it. The Void Crusher, known for being temperamental even with our most experienced testers, behaved like an eager puppy in her hands. This is unprecedented, Captain Mira of the Ethics Committee declared during an emergency meeting. The human's endurance levels are off the charts. Our strongest weapons barely make her blink. Yesterday, Lieutenant Pip added, his voice haunted. She asked if we could combine the neutron flare with the temporal disruptor because, and I quote, it might make things more interesting. More fainting. But here's the truly absurd part, she was right. Every single modification she suggested, every wild theory she proposed, they all worked. The weapons didn't just work, they worked better. Our efficiency ratings skyrocketed. The power outputs doubled, then tripled. You know what this needs became the most feared phrase on the station. It was usually followed by something physically impossible, completely insane, or both, which Alexandra would then proceed to make work anyway. The breaking point came during the testing of the Thunder God Array, a weapon system so powerful it required its own dedicated power plant. Alexandra took one look at it, tilted her head, and said those dreaded words. You know what this needs? More lightning. The entire engineering team, all 15 members, fainted in perfect synchronization. It was actually quite impressive. They formed a perfect spiral as they fell. Was it something I said? Alexandra asked, genuinely puzzled, while casually juggling 3 power cores that could each level a small moon. I looked at my once orderly testing facility, now filled with unconscious scientists, modified weapons that defied physics, and one human who treated planet-destroying forces like party favors. MS. Rodriguez, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Perhaps we should take a break before testing the planet cracker tomorrow. Her eyes lit up like miniature supernovas. The planet cracker? Really? I've heard rumors about that one. Is it true it can split a gas giant in half? Because I have some ideas about how we could make it split 2 gas giants. 3 more faints. A new record for a single sentence. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a terrifying thought formed. This wasn't just about testing weapons anymore. This was about survival. Not from the weapons, from the enthusiasm of one human who thought our most devastating creations needed a little more oomph. The universe, I decided, has a very twisted sense of humor. The day of the planet cracker test arrived with all the subtlety of a supernova. The entire Galactic Weapons Board had assembled 15 of the most distinguished weapons experts in the known universe. They'd come to witness our crowning achievement, the culmination of 3 centuries of weapons development, the planet cracker. Even its name was spoken in whispers. A weapon so powerful it had its own artificial moon for housing, the kind of device that made hardened war veterans wake up in cold sweats, our pride and joy. Alexandra took one look at it and snorted. She actually snorted. Like someone had just shown her a rubber band instead of the most devastating weapon ever created. This is it. She walked around the massive device, tapping various parts with a wrench she'd pulled from somewhere. I mean, the quantum stabilization matrix is nice, and I like the plasma containment field, but seriously. Supreme General Kaz Toth of the Weapons Board rose from his seat, all 7 feet of his armored carapace bristling with indignation. Young human, this device can split a planet in half. Yeah, but only one at a time, Alexandra replied, already elbow deep in an access panel she definitely shouldn't have been able to open. And look at this power coupling. It's barely channeling a zettawatt. No wonder it takes 3 hours to warm up. 3 members of the board fainted immediately. We'd prepared fainting couches for this very possibility. They were becoming a standard requisition item. MS Rodriguez, I intervened quickly. Perhaps we should proceed with the standard test protocol. Oh. Speaking of protocols, she emerged from the panel, her face streaked with some glowing substance I really hoped wasn't critical to the weapons containment system. I made some adjustments last night. Hope you don't mind. The entire room went silent. Even the quantum generators seemed to hold their breath. What Dr. Nixus Prime squeaked. Just some minor tweaks, she said, waving a hand dismissively while punching commands into the control panel with the other. Reversed the polarity of the main power core, added a few quantum harmonizers I had lying around in my toolkit, and installed a small dimensional pocket to boost the power output. Nothing major. 4 more board members fainted. The padding on the observation room floor was getting crowded. But the safety protocols, Lieutenant Pip began. Oh, those old things, Alexandra laughed. Don't worry, I wrote new ones, much better. Now we can channel the power of a small galaxy instead of just a measly solar system. The remaining conscious board members turned colors I didn't even know their species could achieve. Initiating test sequence, she announced cheerfully before anyone could stop her. The planet cracker hummed to life, but this wasn't the usual steady vibration we'd designed. This was different. This was, Is it supposed to glow like that? Someone whimpered. Nope, Alexandra replied, sounding absolutely delighted. This is way better, the weapon fired. The target, an uninhabited planet in a carefully cleared testing zone, didn't just crack. It didn't just split. Well, the closest description I can give is that it forgot how to exist in our dimension. See, Alexandra beamed, while the remaining conscious observers stared in horror at where a planet used to be. Now that's what I call a planet cracker. Though really we should probably rename it. Maybe the Reality Ripper? The Dimension Destroyer? Ooh, how about Bob? Supreme General Kaz Toth, the last conscious board member besides myself, turned to me with all four of his eye stalks twitching. Captain Vorn, he said in a voice that suggested he was hanging on to sanity by a thread, your human weapons tester just improved it, Alexandra suggested helpfully. Oh, and watch this. I added a secondary firing mode. That was too much for the Supreme General. His eye stalks rolled back, and he joined his colleagues on the fainting couches. Was it something I said? Alexandra asked, still fiddling with the controls of what was now essentially a handheld galaxy eraser. Hey, do you think we could test this on a binary star system? I've got some ideas about creating artificial quasars. I looked at the unconscious forms of the entire Galactic Weapons Board. I looked at the empty space where a planet used to exist. I looked at Alexandra Boom Boom Rodriguez, who was now humming something called Highway to Hell while making notes about potential upgrades. Ms. Rodriguez, I said, in what I hoped was a calm and professional tone. Perhaps we should discuss your suggestions over lunch. Great idea, she brightened up. I brought some experimental energy bars I've been working on. They're only mildly radioactive now. As I watched her skip out of the testing chamber, I realized something profound. We hadn't just hired a weapons tester. We'd hired a force of nature. A human who looked at the laws of physics the way a child looks at a rule book as mere suggestions. And somewhere in the vast emptiness of space where a planet used to be, I swear I could hear the universe laughing again. Or maybe it was crying. At this point, who could tell the difference? The emergency meeting of the Galactic Safety Council convened 2 days after the planet cracker incident. Representatives from 17 species crammed into our largest conference room, which had been hastily retrofitted with additional fainting couches and smelling salts. Safety Inspector Creeks, still slightly pale from witnessing Bob's test run, stood at the podium. Fellow council members, we face an unprecedented situation. Our weapons testing protocols, shrieked Counselor Vix of the Arachnid Confederation, all 8 legs waving in agitation. She turned our most powerful weapon into a toy. Actually came a cheerful voice from the doorway. It's more like a multi-dimensional physics manipulator now. The planet cracking is just a fun side effect. The entire room froze. Alexandra stood there, munching on one of her mildly radioactive energy bars, wearing a lab coat covered in scorch marks and what appeared to be equations written in glowing ink. 3 council members fainted on the spot. Perfect timing, she strode in, apparently oblivious to the wave of terror that followed her. I've been working on some improvements to the station's defense grid. Did you know you can boost the shield strength by about 3,000% if you just add a little temporal displacement? 2 more faints. Ms. Rodriguez, I began carefully. This is a closed council session about safety protocols. Yeah, I heard she nodded, pulling out a tablet that was definitely smoking. That's why I brought my suggestions. See if we just adjust the standard safety parameters to account for human durability. Human durability, Professor Zax of the Science Academy exploded, his crystalline form vibrating with stress. There's nothing standard about human durability. You survived direct exposure to weapons that could vaporize a star. Oh, those little things, Alexandra waved dismissively. Barely felt a tingle. Now, about these safety protocols. Another council member hit the floor. The human species, declared High Chancellor Nix, her bioluminescent patterns flashing warning colors, cannot be measured by our standard metrics. That's what I've been saying, Alexandra bounced excitedly. We need a whole new classification system. I've already drafted some guidelines. Category 1 could be mild tickle, Category 2 slightly interesting, Category 3 almost fun. The High Chancellor's patterns went dark, and she joined her unconscious colleagues. Look, Alexandra said, pulling up holographic diagrams that defied several laws of physics. All we need to do is recalibrate our entire understanding of weapons safety, redesign the testing facilities, and maybe add a few quantum stabilizers. I brought some spares. She reached into her seemingly bottomless toolkit and pulled out what looked like a miniature star contained in a glass jar. The remaining conscious council members took one look at it and decided unconsciousness was the better part of valor. Was it the quantum stabilizer? Alexandra asked, looking around at the room full of unconscious bureaucrats. I swear it's perfectly safe. Well, mostly safe. Okay, it probably won't cause more than one or two temporal paradoxes. I looked at my once orderly conference room, now filled with the unconscious forms of the galaxy's highest-ranking safety officials. Somewhere in the distance, I heard Lieutenant Pip sobbing quietly. "Ms. Rodriguez," I said, using my most diplomatic tone, "perhaps we should discuss your suggestions. After everyone regains consciousness." "Great idea," she beamed. "That'll give me time to finish my modifications to the station's reactor core. Did you know you can increase power output by 700% if you just—" "No," shouted every conscious being in a 10-kilometer radius. "Fine," she pouted. "But at least let me show you my plans for upgrading the coffee machine. I only had to bend 3 laws of thermodynamics for that one." As I watched her skip out of the room, humming another Earth-tuned danger zone this time, I realized something crucial. We weren't going to change Alexandra Boom Boom Rodriguez. We needed to change our entire understanding of what was possible. And maybe, just maybe, invest in more fainting couches. After 3 weeks, 14 emergency meetings, and a record-breaking number of fainting incidents, the Galactic Council finally reached a decision about our human weapons tester. Mostly because they ran out of conscious officials to argue against it. The new human-rated weapons category was established with its own special warning labels written in flashing holographic letters. "Caution, this weapon has been modified by Alexandra Rodriguez. Universal constants may not apply." We had to create entirely new safety protocols, too. Gone were the old standards like maximum safe exposure and lethal dose threshold. Our new categories included mild inconvenience to humans, might make a human sneeze, could ruffle human hair, actually dangerous maybe. Alexandra naturally took this as a challenge. "A whole new category just for me," she exclaimed during her promotion ceremony to Chief Weapons Inspector. "WWW guys, that means I get to test everything again, right?" The assembled dignitaries visibly flinched. Several reached for their personal fainting couches, now a standard issue item for all senior staff. And look, she pulled out her ever-present toolkit, which now had warning labels in 23 languages. "I've got so many ideas for the new testing procedures. Who wants to see my designs for a pocket universe generator?" 3 admirals and a high counselor chose that moment to inspect the floor closely, with their faces, while unconscious. But here's the truly terrifying part: we're actually getting used to it. The medical bay has a permanent fainting due to human testing ward. The engineering team now starts their day by checking which laws of physics Alexandra plans to break. Even the planet cracker, sorry, Bob, has its own fan club among the more adventurous weapons scientists. Lieutenant Pip hasn't fainted in almost 2 days, which we're counting as progress. As for me? Well, I've learned to embrace the chaos. My perfectly organized facility may now regularly defy the fundamental constants of the universe, but our weapons effectiveness has increased by 3,000%, even if most species are too terrified to use them. "Hey, Captain Vorn," Alexandra calls out as I finish this report. "Want to see my latest project? I'm calling it the Galaxy Tickler." I look at the device in her hands, which appears to be breaking at least 7 laws of thermodynamics just by existing. "Will it make me faint?" I ask, only half joking. "Probably not," she grins. "I mean, there's only a 60% chance of accidentally creating a new dimension this time." And you know what? I actually find myself smiling back. Because that's just another Tuesday with humanity's favorite weapons tester. The universe may never be the same, but at least it's never boring. Oh, and if anyone from the Safety Council is reading this, yes, she did upgrade the coffee machine. It now produces drinks that are technically classified as low-yield fusion reactions. But I have to admit, it makes the best cup of coffee in 17 galaxies. Just don't ask about the temporal aftertaste. End report. P.S. Alexandra would like me to add that she's barely getting started and has so many ideas for improving our entire arsenal. I'm including this addendum from the relative safety of my newly reinforced quantum-shielded office. The fainting couch is already deployed, just in case.